From our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, teachers around Tasmania have walked off the job, protesting against the state government's proposed reforms to TAFE. The Education Minister says the move will make the training provider more flexible, but the union is arguing there's no evidence to back that claim.
On Parliament lawns in Hobart and on the steps of the Premier's office in Launceston, around the state, hundreds gathered in support of one thing. Protesting against the government's move to legislate changes to TAFE.
There's no collaboration in working together about this. It's basically an us against them. It's their way or the highway.
The Education Minister standing by the reforms that would see TAFE become a government business.
What this is about is ensuring that we have got a public provider of training in Tasmania that can respond to the needs of industry.
Stakeholders lining up behind the Minister to back in that message one by one.
More nimble, that can better support the changing demands of industry.
Nimble, responsive, relevant training.
Nimble and able to actually deliver on what industry wants.
A premise Labor disputes.
It's a fact that courses are accredited nationally with industry input. This bill does not change that, so it will not make courses more flexible. That is a nonsense.
The Education Minister says in Tasmania, the numbers speak for themselves.
90% satisfaction rates from the employers, 90% completion rates for apprentices and 90% student satisfaction rates. We're leading the country.
Arguing the government hasn't presented any data to back in their proposal.
It's unacceptable. I'm here to say that the nation is watching and that we stand with our colleagues here at TAFE.
The legislation passed through the House of Assembly last Tuesday. It's now set to be considered by the upper house within the next week, and teachers say they'll continue to fight.
When TAFE is under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back!
Stand up!
Fight back!
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
A big change has come to the Check-in Tas app. From today, users can display their COVID-19 vaccination status whenever checking in. A green tick will appear next to the name of a fully vaccinated person. It can be tapped to display a digital certificate. Once borders open, the certificate can be shown to gain entry into the state and at events where vaccination is required. For instructions on how to access the new feature, head to the government's coronavirus website. A $100 million accommodation development at Hobart's Macquarie Point has been unveiled, promising accommodation and a community hub. But Labor has labelled the plan as apartments for rich people, saying it's disappointing after years of no action.
81 apartments, green public spaces and even a rooftop bar. This is the latest vision for the empty Macquarie Point site.
This is a commercial development that is so much more than commercial. It's about embracing the community to come and use it 24/7.
The designs released today for the long-awaited development, promising easy access to Hobart's cenotaph, hospitality spots and residential accommodation powered by solar energy.
The building will perform well above the requirements of the building code. We'll also be producing power on site, which will be fed back into the grid, but also used on site for charging electric vehicles and bicycles, and it will be 100% powered by renewable energy.
The parcel of land bought by Melbourne-based developer Milieu, planning to hire Tasmanian builders.
Well timed, it's a $100 million project coming into the construction pipeline with certainty at a time when we're seeing major projects in Hobart reaching that completion stage.
The development praised for the potential economic benefits in Hobart, while generating 215 immediate jobs, a further 375 during construction and another ongoing 110 positions.
So over $100 million worth of investment for that site will not only bolster the economy locally but also provide surety for the future investments in there as well.
But after waiting years for a plan, Labor isn't sold.
Well, Macquarie Point is a tragedy. We had the boldness and vision of Mona, and what we've ended up with is an apartment block for rich people.
While the Infrastructure Minister puts the slow progress down to various complications.
Being a disused industrial site, there's a lot of site contamination. Together with the site planning that's had to be done, a number of law changes have been affected, and we're now able to take this to market, and we've now sold our first block of land.
Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmania News.
Police say a fire which tore through a home in Glenorchy last night was deliberately lit. Crews from Hobart and Glenorchy were called to the blaze on Tolosa Street shortly before midnight. They were able to extinguish the fire, but the house was destroyed. Anyone who noticed suspicious activity in the area at the time should contact police. A man who assaulted a female police officer has been spared an immediate jail term. Rory Mitchell Shipton Gator was intoxicated when he sprayed capsicum spray at a Launceston police officer before headlocking her and pulling her arm in August last year. The judge describing it as a violent struggle. The offender has been sentenced to 3 months imprisonment with 12 months suspended. A new national approach from Australia's top legal officers to raise the minimum age of criminal responsibility to 12 years has been labelled a missed opportunity. Tasmania's Children's Commissioner claims 12 is still too young to arrest, charge and even detain young people. She wants the minimum age raised to 14.
Children and young people are more likely to undertake risky behaviours. They are more likely to benefit from supports to enable them to operate effectively in their communities.
We really want to work on how we have a therapeutic approach across the entire system and how we're supporting young people in particular to make good choices early.
The state's youth minister says it's very rare for a child under the age of 14 to be detained, with sentencing typically a last resort measure. There's easier access to support services for Tasmanians living with a disability who have experienced trauma. Support organisation Relationships Australia teaming up with Live Tasmania to create online educational videos and reading material, offering guidance and pathways to trauma-informed counselling.
Very helpful for people with a disability to know these services are out there so people don't have to feel isolated.
Important for every person with disability and their families and supporters and providers to access this resource and seriously put forward the issues people face on a daily basis.
The resource also assisting those impacted by the ongoing Royal Commission into violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation of people with disability. Tough border bans have continued to wreak havoc on Tasmanian events, forcing the delay of the Party in the Apocalypse Festival. But the state government is promising an easing of restrictions in a boost to the sector and to entertainment-hungry punters.
The Apocalypse has been delayed. Vibes Town shifting their summer party back 3 weeks to late December.
We decided that, the show must go on. We didn't want to leave Tassie without another festival.
Headliners would have been unable to enter the state on the original date due to closed borders.
We've had other events in the past where we've been able to get in artists on the essential worker category 4 through G2G passes. Unfortunately, there was a simple rule change there.
But they're saying it's a win for punters with more acts to be added to the lineup, while an easing of the state's event restrictions will also soon be announced.
We really want dancing back. It's an obvious choice. You go to a music festival, you go to a gig, asking people not to dance is pretty crazy.
But it comes too late for some, like Vandemonium Touring, whose Hobart summer event was canned after headliners pulled out.
Obviously, an event like that is extremely big to prepare. We spent months preparing it and getting the artists.
The state government under fire for reacting only once cancellations have been made.
Well, ultimately, the rules that we've had around COVID has been around keeping Tasmanians safe. That has been our highest priority.
We want our community to be safe, but to have a message of we're opening up the borders and yet we're still not prepared to sit down with you about how to make festivals work makes it really hard for people.
Festival fans now keeping an eye on this week's announcements. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Glenorchy now has a bigger and more modern RACT branch after the company spent $55,000 refurbishing it. The organisation's CEO cutting the ribbon on the revamped premises, which now has room for an extra 2 consultants.
We've improved the look and feel, we've improved signage, we've expanded, improved staff amenities, so great result all round.
The company says an increase in demand for its services was a driver behind the decision. The potential use of electronic identification devices for sheep in Tasmania will be investigated in a new study. The tags are already mandatory for cattle in the state, with some farmers here voluntarily using them already for their sheep.
Originally we did it to improve the data we had on our sheep to make breeding decisions. So we used it to test their wool and have that wool test tagged to that sheep, and then we could make decisions about which sheep we kept.
So we want to have a look at what would it look like if we were to roll that out here, what would be the benefits, what would be the costs, what would be the reception of our producers and processors.
The state government is providing $250,000 into the study. Tasmania's quirkiest music festival is set to return to some peculiar porches for a second year. The organisers of the Avondale Veranda Festival say they're looking to build on last year by coming back with an even better lineup of eclectic acts.
I'm gonna change his point of view.
Look, I reckon we got it about 90% right, which is pretty amazing because we didn't know what we were doing. I've never organised a music festival before.
Just the whole look of it just reminds me of the festivals that used to be, that were very much, I suppose, community-based, for the people, very organic.
The festival is running on November 27 and 28 with tickets available on the events website. Tasmanian researchers are hoping to revolutionise how a debilitating respiratory disease is diagnosed. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease damages a lungs and a person's ability to breathe, leaving sufferers unable to manage daily activities.
Ella Miller knew something was not right when she became unable to run up a hill.
Frightening, but maybe 5 years ago I would have run up that 16-degree incline without any effort. And now walking up makes me quite breathless.
A diagnosis of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease the reason, likely caused by years of smoking, damaging her airways and limiting airflow. She's now taking part in a Tasmanian study funded by the Clifford Craig Foundation, which aims to improve the diagnosis of the disease while reducing its severity.
A new respiratory method, which is just requires relaxed, normal breathing, and also some potential markers that are in the blood which could potentially over time allow early lung disease to be diagnosed with a simple blood test.
The condition, also known as COPD, is primarily caused by smoking, but untreated asthma, exposure to high levels of pollution and wood fires can trigger it. In severe cases, it's fatal. The UTAS researchers are also looking into a connection between smoking or vaping and COVID-19.
Both vaping and smoking are actually enhancing the receptor which is responsible for SARS-CoV-2 to get access to the lungs.
To take part in the study, contact the University of Tasmania's School of Health Sciences. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania will witness the next T20 World Cup with Hobart locked in as one of the host cities. Blunston Arena will stage some of the 45 games at the 2022 tournament, along with Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne and Geelong's Cardinia Park. Australia was meant to host the World Cup last year, but it was pushed to October 2022, of course, because of COVID. The full fixture will be released in January. Despite coming off 2 years of injury troubles, North Hobart's Will Splann is in the frame for the AFL draft after a standout season. But the West Coast fan is playing down his chances, admitting another year of growth could help him reach his prime. With strong hands above his head and an attitude clearly down to earth, Will Splann is developing into a magnet for draft day's maestros. But the North Hobart product admits his strength is the sticking point of his game.
I think if I obviously had that to my bow, then I think I could be a lot more of a complete player.
At 195 centimetres and 90 kilos, there's already plenty to throw around. Another year of work, though, could see the versatile forward have a better crack at the big time.
Both my 17s and 18s year has been very limited due to COVID restrictions.
Injury and illness didn't help either, but a strong comeback this year earned the 18-year-old a coveted spot at the AFL Combine, and with that, confidence.
Maybe, gave a bit of an insight to potentially the football I can play.
He's worked closely with fellow draft hopeful Tyler McGuinness, along with coach Clint French and his dad Gary, who also guided Will towards West Coast fandom.
Oh my word! Got brainwashed as a junior. My dad as a kid, there was only a few teams that played on television on a weekend, and that was one of them. So he decided to go with the Eagles.
Splann considers continuity one of the biggest reasons for his rise this season. Perhaps next Wednesday's draft night will be the capstone.
Getting back on the park and having trust in my body was probably the biggest thing I got out of this year. And I think to obviously get a little bit of recognition for some of the work I've put in is just icing on top.
Two Northwest Tasmanians are at the top of their leagues in the US. In his first week of his college hoops career, Alverson's Rain Smith has been named Rookie of the Week in the Colonial Athletic Association. He's playing for Charleston College in South Carolina and had a win on the weekend, while Burnie's Taryn Armstrong is the Freshman of the Week in the Western Athletic Conference, playing for California Baptist University.
Good evening, everyone. Devonport the state's top today with 18 degrees, 17 in Launceston, Hobart 16 and 15 in Burnie. Across the state, St Helens 17, Low Head and Friendly Beach is 16, 15 on Flinders Island and in Wynyard, King Island 13 and 8 in Lyowini. Extensive cumulus cloud can be seen over Tasmania today, as well as waters to the west and south. Further out, an area of cold cloud near the Queensland coast has embedded thunderstorms, as does the band of cloud over Western Australia, which is associated with a trough. Tomorrow's chart shows a broad area of high pressure extending over Eastern Australia, while a trough and associated lows persist in Western Australia. Westerly winds tomorrow 10 to 20 knots, reaching 25 knots in the south in the morning, tending northwesterly during the afternoon and evening. Hobart and Geeveston both 18 degrees tomorrow, partly cloudy and 17 in Bothwell. Launceston and Cressy both 19 and partly cloudy, Devonport reaching 17. 17 degrees in Burnie tomorrow, possible morning showers and 16 in Strawn, Curry a top of 15. And in the east, 18 in St Helens and 17 and partly cloudy in Swansea and Orford. And the UV tomorrow is very high 8s across the state, with sunrise expected at 5:40 a.m. On Thursday, showers about the west extending statewide during the day. Mainly fine in the northwest and central north on Friday, scattered showers elsewhere. And on Saturday, showers about the northeast extending to remaining northern and central areas during the afternoon. 27 in Perth tomorrow, partly cloudy in Adelaide and Melbourne, 19 in Canberra, 22 and partly cloudy in Sydney, Brisbane 26 degrees and a sunny 37 in Darwin. And currently Hobart cloudy and 13 degrees, cloudy and 14 in Launceston and mostly sunny and 13 in Devonport. And that's all in weather tonight, Kim.
That is your news for this Tuesday. Have a great night. See you later.